$511 Boko Haram terrorists surrender, troops rescue Chibok girl. The Forest State Police rescues 10 kidnapped victims at Gusani Forest. Federal allocation drops as federal government, states and local government areas share 655 billion naira. On business, NNPCL begins oil supply to Dangote refinery next week. On international scene, Uganda's foreign minister urges Moscow to consider flight of African nations over Ukraine grain deal. On sports, Flying Eagles train in Mendoza ahead of Under-20 World Cup opener. Welcome to Standard Voice News Channel. I am Samira Ibrahim. 511 Boko Haram terrorists and their families have surrendered following a recent offensive by troops of the Nigerian Army in the northeast region. The figure comprises 99 adult males, 161 adult females, and 251 children who surrendered to troops at different locations within the theater of operations. This was disclosed in a Thursday statement signed by the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Musa El-Madami. He said troops also rescued one kidnapped Chibok school girl. He said during one of the operations, troops killed 26 Boko Haram terrorists, Islamic State of West African Province terrorists, arrested 25 terrorists, logistics suppliers, one terrorist spy, and one Boko Haram terrorist. He added that all recovered items, apprehended suspects, and rescued Chibok school girl have been handed over to the relevant authorities for further action, while the surrendered Boko Haram terrorists, Islamic State of West African Province family members were profiled and equally handed over to the appropriate authority. The Zamfara State Police have succeeded in rescuing 10 kidnapped victims along Gusami Forest of Birnin Magaji local government area of the state. This was contained in a press release signed by the spokesperson of the command, ASP Yazid Abubakar, issued to newsmen. The victims, while undergoing interview by the Commissioner of Police, said that they have been in captivity since 7 May 2023, when the bandit took them to the unknown destination and spent 10 days in captivity. CP Muhammad Bunu appealed to the general public to continue supporting the police by giving timely and credible information with a view to restoring normalcy in the state and rescue other kidnapped victims. The Federation Account Allocation Committee says it shared 655.93 billion naira among the three tiers of government in April 2023. The figure represents a decrease of 58.7 billion naira compared to the 714.63 billion naira shared in March 2023. FAC disclosed this in a communique issued at the end of its latest meeting in Abuja on Thursday. It has been observed that the allocation shared has been on a decline throughout this year. The total amount includes gross statutory revenue, value-added tax, augmentations from forex and non-oil mineral revenue, and electronic money transfer levies. The federal government received 248.81 billion naira. The state received 218.31 billion naira, and the local government councils got 160.6 billion naira, while the oil-producing state received 28.22 billion naira as derivation, 13% of mineral revenue. The communique added that the sum of 15.12 billion naira from the electronic money transfer levies was distributed to the three tiers of government. President Muhammad Buhari will on Thursday, May 25th, confer national honors on President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima. They both will be conferred with the national honors of Grand Commander of the Federal Republic and Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger. This is according to a brief statement shared via Twitter by the President's Special Assistant on Digital and New Media, Tolu Ogunleshi. According to Ogunleshi, on the same day, there will be an official handover of transition documents to the incoming administration. In his view, the process will be the most organized and seamless presidential transition in the history of Nigeria, enabled by Executive Order 14, signed by President Muhammad Buhari. About 65 world leaders, including heads of state, have been invited to grace the inauguration of the President-elect Bola Tinubu, who will be sworn in as the 16th President of Nigeria on May 29th. Also expected at the nation's 7th transition ceremony are past presidents, diplomats, heads of international organizations and prominent Nigerians, and representatives of foreign governments and agencies. The inauguration programs will begin on Thursday with the investiture of Tinubu with the Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic and the Vice President-elect Kashim Shettima as the Grand Commander of the Order of Niger. A director in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed that several African leaders had indicated interest in attending the inauguration ceremony, which will take place at Eagle Square, Abuja. President Muhammadu Buhari has inaugurated Kashimbila Multipurpose Dam, 40 megawatt hydropower station, and associated 132 kV switchyard, transmission line and distribution substation Phase 1 project at Kashimbila Dam site in Taraba State. A statement by Special Advisor on Media and Publicity, Femi Adesina, said Buhari performed the inauguration in a virtual ceremony in Abuja. The president underscored the importance of the project, highlighting its role in his administration's commitment to achieving 30 GW of electricity by 2030. The president invited Minister of Federal Capital Territory, Muhammad Bello, to unveil the project, said implementation and completion of the project align with his policies to alleviate poverty, create jobs, enhance healthcare, and improve standard of living. The Kashimbila Multipurpose Dam in Taraba State, with storage capacity of 500 million cubic meters, was conceived principally to checkmate the threat of the imminent collapse of the structurally weak and poisonous Lake Nyos, located at the line of volcanic activities in Cameroon Republic, which collapse could result in flooding and affecting millions of lives and properties. Some incoming governors have given insight into how they intend to make their states economically buoyant during their tenure. Apart from rising internally-generated revenue, they said they will provide conducive environment by paying attention to security. The governors-elect who will on May 29 be inaugurated also expressed concern over the nation's rising debt burden. Those who spoke at the end of the 3-day induction of re-election and newly elected governors in Abuja are Caleb Mufwang, Plateau, Dukkoradda, Katsina, Hyacinth Aliya, Benue, and Bala Muhammad, Bauchi. The induction was organized by the Nigerian Governors Forum with the support of the Premium Trust Bank. Mufwang and Radda specifically dwelt on creating wealth and diversifying the economies of their state, while Aliya harped on security. Governor Muhammad, a re-elected governor, was more concerned with the nation's debt. Mufwang said he will diversify Plateau's economy and ensure effectiveness in all the productive sectors in the state. Ahead of the inauguration of the next administration, the US dollar has risen to 760 naira as politicians, including contenders for the presiding officers of the National Assembly, scamper for the foreign currency. The inauguration of the next administration will be held on May 29, 2023, and also it is expected that the 10th Assembly will be inaugurated on June 13 after a proclamation letter by the new president, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. A cross-section of Bureau de Change operators told newsmen that the dollar, which had in the last 4 weeks hovered around 735 naira, went up to 760 naira in Abuja on Thursday. One of the BDC operators said the dollar recorded a 12 naira gain, the highest in recent times. On Wednesday, it was selling for 740 naira as of 8 p.m., but on Thursday, it is selling for 761 naira as of 6 p.m. because of the mad rush for the currency by politicians. According to him, the contenders for presiding officers of the National Assembly are reaching out to their colleagues with dollars. Speaking on the development, a Bureau de Change operator said a dollar is now exchanged for 760 naira. On business news. As the Dangote refinery begins operation next week, the supply of 300,000 barrels of crude oil per day by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited to the facility is going to commence. This was announced by the Group Chief Executive Officer, NNPCL, Mr. Mele Kyari, on Thursday. Mr. Kyari, who disclosed this at the ongoing 4th Nigerian Oil and Gas Opportunity Fair in Yenagoa, Bayelsa State, also urged all stakeholders to join the National Oil Company in growing crude oil and gas production in Nigeria. Early this month, reports indicated that the Dangote refinery, established by Africa's richest man, Aliko Dangote, is scheduled to be inaugurated on May 22nd. A presidential aide, Bashir Ahmad, had tweeted that the inauguration will be done by President Muhammadu Buhari. On international scene, Uganda's foreign minister has held a top-level meeting with Russia's Sergei Lavrov over the Ukraine Black Sea grain deal. Meeting in Moscow Thursday, J.J. Odongo told a joint news conference that he had urged parties involved to consider the plight of many African countries who depend on grain for wheat and bread. He said quite a number of African countries, particularly in the northern part of Africa, depend on grain, particularly for wheat and bread. Sergei Lavrov, however, said the next 2 months will help decide the fate of the deal, which allows Ukraine to ship grain through the Black Sea. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Wednesday said Moscow had agreed to extend the agreement for 2 months.
Quite a number of African countries, particularly in the northern part of Africa, depend on grain, particularly for wheat and bread. We understand their plight, but we think whatever should be done in the interests of those in need and not to use their need to the advantage of others.
On Sports News. Nigeria's Flying Eagles have had their first training session in the city of Mendoza, Argentina, after arriving on Wednesday evening before their opening match of the FIFA Under-20 World Cup against the Dominican Republic on Sunday. The team, led by head coach Ladan Boso, touched down at the Aeroporto International Airport, Mendoza, and was received by NFF Head of International Competitions, Dayo Enebi, and officials of the local organizing committee of the championship. The Nigerian Football Federation has set up a free World Cup training camp for the Flying Eagles in Buenos Aires, the capital city of Argentina, where the team defeated Argentine second division team Almirante and battled out a 3-3 draw with fellow World Cup finalists Colombia in friendlies. Nigeria, who will be making their 13th appearance at the FIFA Under-20 World Cup, starts their campaign against Dominican Republic, then face the Italians 3 days later before rounding off the ground stage against Brazil, May 27th. That has been the news from Standard Voice Television. To end the news, a recap of the major headlines once again. 511 Boko Haram terrorists surrender, troops rescue Chibok girl. Zamfara State Police rescues 10 kidnapped victims at Gusani Forest. Federal allocation drops as federal government, states and local government areas share 655 billion naira. On business, NNPCL begins oil supply to Dangote refinery next week. On international scene, Uganda's foreign minister urges Moscow to consider flight of African nations over Ukraine grain deal. On sports, Flying Eagles train in Mendoza ahead of Under-20 World Cup opener. That's the news. On behalf of the production crew, I am Samira Ibrahim saying you have a nice day.